Welcome everybody. LisaBug Yoga by the Pool, and I have with me 4 guests socially distancing today. So we have Shelly and Fern and Joyce and Joanne, and all of you, welcome. Thank you for coming today. Our focus today is on the Mula Bandha. I know we hear it a lot in our yoga practice, contract the Mula Bandha, but today we're going to learn what that is and then some poses that we can really work on connecting with the Mula Bandha today that work nicely. So just have a seat, nice and comfortable position. And the Mula Bandha is the root lock. So it's that connection with our pelvic floor, tightening those muscles. And the pelvic floor is kind of a complex series of muscles that connect underneath your pelvis, the bottom of the pelvic floor. And if you think about your pelvis, which actually means or is translated in Latin as bowl or basin, your pelvis is like a bowl. So if we tip it forward, the water would come out of the bowl. If we tip it back, the water would come out, or side to side. Or of course, if the bowl didn't have a bottom, the water would go through the bottom. So our pelvic floor is the bottom of the bowl, of the basin. And these muscles make a diamond shape. So if you think of the tip of the diamond as being your pubic bone, the bottom tip of the diamond being your tailbone or your coccyx, and then the right and left sides of the diamond as being your sitting bones. Just a second. Your sitting bones from right to left side. So if that is all relaxed, that is a sling that holds our internal organs kind of in place, and specifically it works well for bladder control, that kind of thing as we get older. So it's really important that we connect and draw up that pelvic floor or Mula Bandha when we are practicing yoga. It helps us to stabilize in our poses and to stabilize our pelvis. And there's a few poses that work really well to isolate the pelvic floor and the Mula Bandha, and we'll cover those today. So just close your eyes as we begin to center and feel your sitting bones grounding into your mat. And sometimes it's nice to just move your flesh from side to side a little bit so you really get those sitting bones connected into the earth. And that is the right and left sides of our diamond in the pelvic floor. Then bring your awareness to the tip of the diamond, the pubic bone, and the back of the diamond, which is your tailbone. And we'll just breathe in and out through the belly as we bring our awareness to the pelvic floor and to our Mula Bandha. And when we connect with the Mula Bandha, it's important that our pelvis is stable and in a neutral position. As we sit and breathe, the spine is long, shoulders are back and down, and lengthening through the crown of the head. And as you begin to breathe, just see if you can connect with the pelvic floor. So oftentimes it's described as that feeling like you are going to stop the flow of urine really quickly and then to release it again. Just making that connection in the pelvis, the base of the pelvis. And try to isolate that maybe 3 or 4 more times as you breathe. Sometimes it's hard to find that connection if we weren't taught how to isolate the pelvic floor. So be patient with yourself. Give yourself time to find that root lock. One more time, contract the pelvic floor and release it. There's a direct connection between drawing your legs together, which is adduction, and connecting with the pelvic floor. So we'll be doing poses today where we actually have our feet together, where we might not often have that. So come onto your hands and knees for all fours position. And then instead of taking your knees hips distance apart today, I want you to bring your knees close together. So they're touching, your feet are touching, but your hands can still be shoulders width apart. And today we are going to do pelvic tilts here. So rather than a full cat and cow with the upper back, I want you to isolate the lower back by tipping the tailbone up to the sky. And notice it feels like your sitting bones are separating. And then tuck just your tailbone underneath, drawing it towards your pubic bone, and feel your sitting bones closing in. We'll do that with the breath. Inhale to tip the tailbone up. That's where we release the Mula Bandha. Then exhale, tuck the tailbone in and contract the Mula Bandha. So the upper back is not moving, the head and neck is not moving. It's just the lumbar spine to tilt the pelvis forward and back. And imagine your pelvis being a bowl. So as you tip the tailbone up, the water falls out the front of your pelvis. And as you tuck the tailbone under, try to get the water to fall out over your tailbone. We'll take 2 more breaths. Inhale, open the sitting bones. Exhale, close them, contract and draw up the pelvic floor. And one more time, tip. And pull it under. Now hold the tailbone under and feel that connection in the pelvic floor. Keep the connection, but just tip your pelvis to neutral and try not to let that connection go. From here, we'll hold our pelvis neutral as we move in and out of spinal balance. So one arm and the opposite leg extend, then come back down, and the other side. So if you can, brace the Mula Bandha as you're moving through this core stabilization exercise. So there's not a lot of movement through the pelvis. It's really isolated. Our breath is to inhale as the arm and leg lengthen. To exhale as the hand and knee plant to the mat. And let's do one more on each side. Then sit the hips back towards the heels. Child's pose. Lengthen the arms out nice and long. The pelvic floor is relaxed here, so there's no contraction through the Mula Bandha. Then coming up into downward facing dog, that's another pose where we can really isolate and connect with Mula Bandha. We'll tuck the toes, lift the hips up, and for today, bring your feet together. We don't normally do that in down dog, but it'll really help with our Mula Bandha connection. So your big toes are touching if they can, maybe ankles connected, knees connected. Then just tip your tailbone up to the ceiling. You need to bend your knees. You can do that. Then as you exhale, try to tuck your tailbone under and connect with your Mula Bandha, pulling the sitting bones towards one another. Then we'll inhale, lift the tailbone, spread the sitting bones apart, and exhale, tuck the tailbone, drawing the sitting bones in that right and left side of our diamond shape. We'll do 3 more breaths. Inhale, tailbone up. Exhale, tailbone under. There's not a lot of range of motion with this one. And we'll do 2 more. Rock the pelvis forward and rock the pelvis back. Last time, pelvis rocks forward, tailbone is up. Pelvis rocks under. And then keep that connection with your Mula Bandha and just let your pelvis slowly come to neutral without losing the connection of the muscles of the pelvic floor. And hold here, 3 breaths. Nice and stable through the shoulders. 2 more breaths. Last one. And then drop your knees down to the mat. They can be close together if you'd like. And press back to your child's pose. Pelvic floor relaxes. If you need a stretch for your wrists, we were on the hands for a bit of time. You can take a little bit of a posing stretch for the wrists or roll through the wrists a couple of times each direction. And then we'll reach those hands back out long to the mat. Tuck the toes, lift the hips back into our downward facing dog. Now, at any time this series that you do, you can come down to your knees again or to your elbows. Try to find that neutral pelvis. Bring your feet tight together. Mula Bandha is connected. And on an inhale, lift your right leg up without moving your pelvis at all. So sometimes we start to roll the pelvis out. And that's okay in certain poses, but I want you to keep the pelvis completely neutral as that leg lifts. And then set it down next to the opposite foot. Inhale, lift the left leg. Your foot is parallel. Ankle is flexed. And lower down. We'll do 2 more on each side. And as you lift the leg, squeeze and lift the pelvic floor up. And lower down. If you're on hands and knees, you can just lift one leg behind you at a time or go back to that spinal balance. And 1 more on each side. Try not to move the pelvis at all as that leg lifts and lowers. Last time on the left leg, pick it up and lower it down. Drop the knees, relax the wrists and the shoulders. As we get stronger through our Mula Bandha, we'll really feel the muscles to strengthen in a deeper connection. But if we can just do a slight connection, that's really going to help with our stabilization and our balance in our standing poses. So let's tuck the toes, lift the hips, come back into your downward dog, and then walk or jump feet forward to the top of your mat, come into forward bend. And then let your hands float up to your shins so we're in half forward fold, Ardha Uttanasana. We're going to do our pelvic floor connection here in this half forward fold. So as you inhale, lift your tailbone up, and I'm really creating the sway in my back. And then exhale, roll the tailbone underneath, and I'm rounding this part of my lower back and opening it up, pulling my sitting bones together. We'll do 3 more. Your feet can be tight together on this one too, so we can activate through the inner thighs. Round it up, contract the Mula Bandha. And 2 more. Tip the tailbone up, spread the sitting bones. Exhale, tuck the tailbone under, draw the sitting bones together. You might feel your glutes tighten. And 1 more time, tailbone up and tailbone under. Now hold that pelvic floor connection, hold your Mula Bandha, and just slowly bring your pelvis to what you feel like is neutral here. Hold and engage 3 breaths. Shoulders are back. Head is nice and neutral in our position. Belly is drawn in and up. One more breath. Inhale. Exhale. Then inhale, sweep the arms out and up. Extend through the spine. Press the palms together. Thumbs to heart center. We'll just place the hands at the hips, and we can feel this movement of our pelvis forward and back. So on an inhale, tip your tailbone back and let your belly fall forward. There should be no Mula Bandha connection here. And a lot of us stand like this in life, so it's important that we always keep the connection with our Mula Bandha and not let this excessive belly movement to happen. Then tuck your tailbone under, really tuck and squeeze your sitting bones together, engage your pelvic floor. We'll do that twice more. Tip the tailbone back. The back arches. Tip the tailbone under. Mula Bandha connection. Your knees can be slightly bent, and I have my feet together. 1 more time. Inhale. Exhale. Pull it under. Draw your sitting bones together. Tighten that pelvic floor. Keep it tight as you just let your pelvis slowly shift to neutral without losing that connection. So each time we come to mountain pose, that's where I'd like you to be with the pelvis, engaging that Mula Bandha. We'll move through sun salutation A. Inhale, sweep the arms out and up. Exhale, swan dive into forward bend. Now as we inhale to half lift, tighten the Mula Bandha. Exhale, fold, and step your right foot back into lunge and lengthen the spine nice and long. Tighten that back leg, lengthen through the crown of your head, then push back to plank. From the knees or toes, we'll hold here. Try to bring that pelvis to neutral, holding our Mula Bandha. Draw your elbows slightly in towards one another, and either from the knees or the toes, lower down through your chaturanga until the chest and belly come all the way to the mat. Flip the tops of your feet to the floor and extend up into baby cobra. Nice long spine. Lower the chest. Push up with the hands, tucking the toes. Lift the hips up into that downward dog and hold 3 breaths with your Mula Bandha connection. If you want to find that with your feet close together, you can bring them together, squeeze your inner thighs, draw your sitting bones towards one another. Nice neutral pelvis. One more breath in. Then inhale, lift your right leg up. Keep that Mula Bandha connected. Exhale, step between your hands and hold your lunge here. Now, if your foot needs some help along the way, you can move it up until it's right underneath the knee. Tighten the back thigh, lengthen through the crown of the head, and then step the back foot forward to meet the front, coming back into our forward bend. Lift halfway. Mula Bandha connects. Pelvic floor tightens. Exhale and fold. Reverse swan dive. Lengthen. Inhale. Dive right back down into forward bend. Exhale. Lengthen the backs of the legs. Halfway lift. Find that neutral basin, neutral pelvis. And fold. Step your left foot way back into your lunge. And pause there with a nice long spine. I just have my fingertips gently touching the mat here. Then press back to your plank. Find your Mula Bandha. So if I have my back really arched, I probably don't have my Mula Bandha connected. So really pull that pelvis up to neutral. Squeeze your inner thighs if you can. Bring your sitting bones towards one another. From the knees or toes, lower down into our chaturanga. Extend into cobra, or if you'd like to press up into upward facing dog from the tops of the feet. Then lift the hips, tuck toes, downward facing dog. If you like, bring your feet together, squeeze your inner thighs, draw your sitting bones in. Mula Bandha is connected as we breathe. Inhaling and exhaling. And keep that neutral pelvis as you lift your left leg up. I'm not rotating it. It's nice and level. Then swing that foot all the way towards the top of your mat. Hold your lunge. Nice long spine. Press those shoulders down and away from your ears. Then step the back foot in. Forward bend. Halfway lift. Inhale. Exhale. Fold. Reverse swan dive. Inhale all the way up. Press the palms and exhale. All right, Warrior 2 is a wonderful pose we can work on this Mula Bandha. So let's take our legs out nice and wide into a wide leg stretch on your mat. Then we'll turn the right foot out into our Warrior 2 and take a nice long stride here. And for now, we'll just have hands on your pelvis because I want you to feel it moving like a bowl tipping forward and back. And as you inhale, let your belly drop forward and your tailbone push out behind you. As you exhale, tuck it underneath. Draw your sitting bones together. We'll do that 2 more breaths. Inhale, pelvis anteriorly tilts. Exhale, it posteriorly tilts. 2 more breaths. Inhale. Exhale. 1 more. Then tuck that under and hold. Brace it, connect with the Mula Bandha. You're drawing the pelvic floor up. Keep that connection as you check this front knee. and move it out towards the pinky toe side of your foot, then extend through your fingertips. So my goal is to move through side angle pose and reverse warrior without losing this Mula Bandha, without letting your tailbone tip back or your belly fall forward. So keep it tucked in, reach out nice and long to that right side, and come into your side angle pose. Inhale here. Exhale back to warrior two. Flip that right palm up, reverse warrior, inhale. Exhale to warrior two. Now moving through these two poses at your own pace. You can hold them for as long as you like. But my goal is to never move the pelvis and to never lose control of the Mula Bandha. It's really difficult to keep it isolated. So you might notice that you lost it in one or the other poses. Then just stop, reconnect, find it, and then come back into the flow. We'll do two more of each movement. Stretch. And you should feel the strength and the stability coming from that root chakra, coming from the root lock in the pelvic floor. This is our last one, coming into reverse warrior. Then back to our warrior two and hold. Lengthen through the fingertips. Shoulders are right over the hips. Gaze is over that right fingertips. Two more breaths. Make sure your tailbone is slightly tucked under. One more breath. Breathe it in. Breathe it out. And let your hands just float down to your hips. We'll turn the right foot forward, pivoting on the heel. Turn the left foot out. And just find your nice warrior two stance. Your pelvis is neutral here, and then we'll begin to rock it forward and back. So as you inhale, tilt your butt back behind you. Let your belly drop forward. There's no Mula Bandha. Then tuck it under. Draw your sitting bones together. Inhale, tip forward. The water's falling out of the basin. Exhale, pull it under. Pelvic floor is tight. Two more. Breathe in. Breathe out. Last one. Rock forward. Rock back. Hold that connection. Pelvic floor is tight. There might be a little squeeze through your glutes. And extend the arms out, looking over towards the left fingertips. Now hold that abdominal and pelvic floor connection as we tip into side angle pose and stretch. Take a nice big inhale as you lengthen. Then exhale back up to warrior two. Flip the palm up, reverse your warrior. Make sure you still have that pelvic floor connection. And come back to warrior two. At your own pace, moving. And I'd like you to think about everything from your waist down being rock solid in cement. So you can't move your feet, can't move your legs, you can't move your pelvis. That lower hip is stable. And everything from the belly button up is free to move. And let's do one more of each. Lengthen out. Side angle pose. Recheck that you've got that Mula Bandha. Pull it up. And reverse warrior. Back to our warrior two. Hold. Tailbone is tucked under. Shoulder blades are retracted and depressed. Abdominals drawn in. One more breath. Then exhale. Bring the hands back to the hips. Turn both feet parallel forward. And then tip into a wide leg forward fold. The hands can come down to the floor or to a block. You'll notice that your sitting bones really want to lift here, especially if we bend our knees some. So let your sitting bones tip up. The pelvic floor is relaxed. The sitting bones are separated. The head hangs long. And then if you need a block, definitely bring it underneath the fingertips. We are going to do a twist with our wide leg forward fold. So right hand can come to the block or to the floor. We'll start to turn our body to the left, and you can either reach the arm up or you can wrap it behind the back or place your hand right on your hip. And I want you to imagine your pelvis completely level to the floor and the Mula Bandha engaged. We'll hold here 3 breaths, rotating and breathing. 2 more breaths. And on that last exhalation, lower the hand back down. We'll switch. Left hand is on the block, rotating to the right side. Now you might notice your pelvis tried to twist here as your body twisted. So keep the pelvis completely level, abdominals locked in, pelvic floor locked in, and rotate from the waist up through the crown of the head. 2 more breaths. And on that last exhalation, lower the arms back down. We'll take a wide leg downward facing dog. So reach the fingertips way out ahead of you on your mat. And very gently tip your sitting bones up to the ceiling and then tuck them underneath. It's hard to do with the legs separated here, so you might need to soften your knees. Inhale, tip the tailbone up. Exhale, tuck it under. One more time. Inhale, tailbone rises. Exhale, it tucks under. Hold your Mula Bandha and just let your pelvis shift back to that neutral position. Belly's pulled up. 2 more breaths. Last breath in and exhale. Bring your hands back to your hips. With the strength of the back body, lift yourself back up. Let your heels turn in a little bit on both sides. If you need to walk your feet a little bit closer, we'll come into goddess squat. So hands on your hips for now. Let your tailbone rock back, your belly falls forward. Exhale, pull it under. 2 more times, rock the hips, inhale. Pull under, exhale. 1 more time. Pull it under and hold that Mula Bandha. Brace and bring the arms up. So palms are facing the ceiling, elbows bent about 90 degrees. Imagine you're holding 2 strong objects. And we'll move from goddess squat to 5-pointed star. Press through the legs, reach up, spread your fingers. Then exhale, sink, and tighten the Mula Bandha. 3 more breaths. Reach. And sit. Try not to arch your back. Tuck the tailbone. 2 more. Breathe in. Breathe out. Pelvic floor lifts. 1 more. Reach. And hold that goddess squat. 3 breaths. Pull the belly in. Draw your sitting bones towards one another. Shoulders are back. Heart is lifted. 2 more breaths. And 1 more. Hands come to hips. Legs straighten. We're going to move into triangle. If you're using a block, I'll have you bring the block towards your right foot so that it's ready for you. And then turn that right foot forward. The left foot is still level or parallel with the back edge of your mat. We're in our warrior 2 stance. And when I use a block, I like to put it behind my foot rather than in front, because if we put our hand in front, what happens is we bend forward this way and the butt goes back behind us. So we really want to work pulling the buttocks under today. So let's straighten out both legs, tighten the Mula Bandha, lengthen out nice and long, and then just let that hand come down either to your shin or to your block. And then notice whether your your hip bones are pushing back and your back is arching. I want you to pull that tailbone underneath you. And then to really engage the Mula Bandha, imagine that you're closing your legs together on the mat. So you're drawing your inner thighs in towards one another. Everything is nice and tight, and we'll hold here. Now this arm can lengthen. You can wrap it behind your back or place it on your hip, or you can come into extended triangle by reaching that top arm toward your ear. Whatever you like in your triangle pose today. Our goal is to find and connect with the Mula Bandha, the root chakra. Just 2 more breaths here. Maybe you can sink a little bit lower. 1 more breath. Breathe in and breathe out. Then to come up, soften this front knee, bend it a little bit, and pull yourself back up to your warrior 2. Find the Mula Bandha, brace through the pelvis, and lower the hands down. We'll switch to the other side by pivoting on the heel. Bring your block around with you if you're using it. Over to the left side, and it's behind the ankle. Find your warrior 2. Find the Mula Bandha. Make sure your tailbone is underneath. Lengthen both legs to straight. Reach out. This hip kind of tips back and out a little bit as we spiral the hands down into our triangle pose, to our block, or to our shin. Now really focus first on the tailbone. Is it sticking back behind you? Tuck it under. Draw your sitting bones in. Squeeze the pelvic floor. Lift that root lock. And we'll hold here. You can choose what you'd like to do with that top arm to suit your pose today for comfort of the shoulder. And then feel your legs tightening, the inner thighs drawing towards one another. That will really help you to connect today to that Mula Bandha. And let's hold here 3 more breaths. You should feel the work in that root lock, tightening through the pelvic floor. 2 more breaths. Maybe we can sink a little lower. 1 more breath in. Exhale it out. Then soften that front knee. Rise back up to your warrior 2. Connect once more with the Mula Bandha. Tuck the tailbone under. Then hands to hips. And turn back to the front. Both feet straight ahead. 5 pointed star. Reach up. And swan dive into our wide leg forward fold. Just give yourself a chance to relax here. Stretch through your hamstrings. Let everything go. Let the head go, the neck go. And then we'll walk the hands over to the front, the top edge of your mat, and press yourself back into a downward facing dog. Bring your feet tight together, finding that Mula Bandha connection. Try not to tuck or lift too much with the pelvis. Keep it completely neutral. And on an inhale, lift your right leg up. It's to that parallel position. There was no movement in your pelvis. And then as you step that leg forward, just bring it about halfway towards the front of your mat. And we'll prepare for warrior 3. You can use your block here if you'd like. We'll lift the left foot up off the mat. You can use your fingertips or rise up and find your balance. Now our Mula Bandha here is so important in our balance poses. Your arms can be out in front of you, out to the side, palms at your heart center, and find that Mula Bandha connection with a level pelvis. Back leg is active. Let's hold here 3 more breaths. 2 more breaths. On that last exhalation, let your fingertips find the mat. Step that left foot back. The right foot follows into your downward facing dog. Bring your feet tight together. Squeeze the inner thighs. Neutral spine. Inhale, lift the left leg with no movement in your pelvis. That's what your warrior 3 should look like in the hips. We'll step that foot about halfway forward, plant the foot, use your hands on the floor or a block, and lift your back leg up off the mat. Then if you'd like to elevate the fingertips, if you find your balance, breathe, level off the hips. So sometimes when we're in our warrior 3, the hip of the leg that's in the back starts to lift up, and our spine and our pelvis starts to rotate. So the block is a really nice tool to hold on to, usually in the hand of the foot that's behind you. Then we can assist that dropping of the hip and the leveling off of the pelvis. Just a couple more breaths here. Pull up the Mula Bandha. Stabilize through the hips and root into that standing foot. Then we'll reach the fingertips back down to the mat. Step that back foot back and press back into your down dog with your feet tight together. Squeeze the inner thighs. Connect with your Mula Bandha. And we'll drop the knees, resting into child's pose. Let that Mula Bandha connection go. The belly is soft. The pelvic floor is soft as well. And then we'll transition to seated to work on boat pose, Navasana. Now, if you have a block, it's kind of nice to use as a tool to help you connect with Mula Bandha, and your block would go right between your knees. If you don't have one, no worries. You can just push your knees together. And then sitting onto the sitting bones, find that connection on those 2 points of your diamond and bring your body weight back a little bit. You can use your hands on the floor and try to lift your feet up and find your balance. Now, if we push in together with the knees, it'll help us think about drawing up the pelvic floor and drawing your sitting bones in. There's not too much arch in your back. We'll just hold here and draw up the pelvic floor. Now you can do the same thing with your feet down onto the ground. Just press into the knees, tighten the Mula Bandha, and try to breathe while you're tightening the Mula Bandha. Inhale and exhale through the nose. 2 more breaths. Then lowering your feet down and pulling your upper body back up to neutral. Removing the block, let your knees open out into Baddha Konasana, so soles of the feet are touching. Let the knees open. Let your sitting bones open. Then relax that Mula Bandha, flow through the center, stretch the lower back, stretching through the inner thighs. 2 more breaths. And then we'll inhale back out, rotating to the right side. Left hand comes across that right knee. Right hand behind you. Take a nice twist here, looking over the shoulder. And then notice, did your pelvis move? Should still feel a nice connection into your sitting bones, and try drawing in the pelvic floor. And rotate back to the center. Reach that right hand across to left knee. Left hand behind you, lengthen the spine. Look over the left shoulder and draw the pelvic floor up. 2 breaths. And coming back to center. We'll transition onto our back, and if you have your block, we're going to use it between the knees again. So coming down all the way onto your spine, place the block between your knees, or bring your knees and feet tight together so you have that connection with the inner thighs. And then here we'll do a couple of pelvic tilts. So tilt your pelvis forward by creating a great big arch in your lower back. You should feel your sitting bones relaxing away from one another. Then as you exhale, tilt the pelvis so your lower back drops down to the mat. Squeeze the knees together. Pull the sitting bones in and connect with that root lock. Inhale, pelvic tilt forward. Exhale, pelvic tilt back. And 2 more breaths. Inhale, pelvic floor releases. Exhale, pelvic floor tightens. One more time. Inhale, rock forward. Exhale, rock back. Really imprint your lower back down into the mat. Keep that pelvic floor engaged. And then lift your hips up into a baby bridge. So they're not up really high. When we do a really high bridge, usually the Mula Bandha lets go. So I just want to do a baby bridge so we feel that root lock connected. And just hold here. Imagine you're pulling your sitting bones towards one another. Tighten that pelvic floor. 3 more breaths. Squeezing on the block or on the inner thighs. 2 more breaths. One more breath in through the nose. And as you exhale, roll your hips back down and slide the block out from between the knees. And then we'll bring the knees up to tabletop position and find a neutral position. Engage that abdominal and root lock. And as we hold the pelvis neutral, slide one leg out and reach it long. And feel that there's that tendency to want to arch your back and let go of the Mula Bandha. Keep that connection. Then pull that right leg back in. Stabilize. Send your left leg out. So you can have your hands down on the mat if you want, but sometimes it's nice to place them on your hips or on your belly so you can feel if anything is moving in your pelvis. Bring that left foot back in. And then at your own pace, just explore this, sending the right leg out, bringing it in, and then the left leg at any pace you want to go without losing the Mula Bandha. And only you can feel this, because I could get 10 people doing the same exercise and it would all look the same, and maybe only 5 of them would be doing a connection with the Mula Bandha, but sometimes you can't see it with the naked eye. Only you can feel that in your own body. One more on each side, right side and left side. Then come back to your tabletop. Glue your knees tight together, or you can place the block back between your knees, and we are going to do an oblique rotation from side to side. So your arms can be out like a T, or you can place your arms in goalposts or just set them next to the sides of your body. So start to drop your knees over to the right side, and your left hip will lift a little bit off the mat. Hold here and brace that Mula Bandha. Bring your knees back to the center. Drop them over to the left. Now, it doesn't have to be far. Any amount that you drop will give you a connection in your core. Tighten the Mula Bandha and bring it back to center. Now, just moving back and forth at your own pace. The shoulders should not lift off the mat. So when the knees are to the right, make sure you're pressing that left shoulder right down into the floor. But your pelvis is rolling from side to side. And we're twisting through the lower back, mid back, and slightly into the upper back, just up to the shoulder blades. I like to exhale when I'm coming into the twist. It helps me to engage the Mula Bandha. And let's do one more to each side. Notice if you're squeezing your knees tightly together, activate the inner thighs, or pressing the knees into your block. And we'll take one more to that left side. And coming back to center. and set the feet down and relax. So we'll come into a nice held twist here. So if you need some props to brace your legs up, you can set maybe a block or a blanket over next to the right side of your body. And then we'll bring the left knee up into the chest. Let the right leg hang nice and long down to the mat. And then pull that left knee all the way over to your right side until it either connects with your props or maybe to the mat. And then check to see if your left shoulder lifted off the floor. So lift up your chest, press that shoulder back into the mat, and hold your twist. Your gaze can be straight up, or you can turn your head looking towards that left hand and hold this twist. Now we get to relax the Mula Bandha here. Let go of the pelvic floor. Allow the breath to be slow and even. And then as we're holding our twist, we'll take 3 cleansing breaths. So a cleansing breath is to inhale through the nose as deeply as you can, then open your mouth and forcefully let that exhalation go. So at your own pace, 3 total cleansing breaths. Once you finish that 3rd cleansing breath, just allow your breath to find a normal rate. And as you roll back onto your back, that left knee comes into chest with you, and extend your left leg up. If you have a strap and you'd like to place it underneath the bottom of the foot, you can use that strap to help you connect with this hamstring stretch. Or some of you might have the flexibility to take your 2 peace fingers, grab the big toe, and send that leg straight up. Now notice whether or not you're tipping your tailbone forward or back. Try to keep the spine and the pelvis in a neutral place. Lengthen through the back of the leg, hamstring, and the calf muscle. One more breath in. And as you exhale, release the strap and let that leg lower down. If you used props for your twist, you can move those off to the left side of your body to support your leg. We'll hug the right knee up into the chest, pull it up, wind relieving pose. Then draw that right knee across the body until it connects with the mat or with your props. And then check in with your right shoulder. If it came off the mat, readjust, kind of lift your spine up, rotate both shoulders towards the ceiling. And your head can also turn to the right. And just relax into that twist. Let go of the Mula Bandha. And then when you're ready, taking 3 cleansing breaths, inhale deeply through the nose. Exhale forcefully through the mouth. One more cleansing breath, releasing toxins from the bloodstream and the lungs. And just hold that twist, allowing the breath to return to a natural pace. Then rolling back onto your back, bring that right knee with you. If you have a strap and you'd like to use it for your hamstring stretch, loop it under the ball of the foot, or take the peace fingers to grab the big toe to make that yogi toe lock and extend the leg up. Once you have your stretch, Connect with your pelvis. Make sure it's neutral on the mat, not tipped forward, not tipped back, not tipped to the right or left. And lengthen the back of the leg. Just breathe in and out through the nose. Just a couple more breaths. Maybe you can take it a little bit deeper and lengthen through the back of the leg. Then releasing the strap or the big toe. Lower that leg all the way down to the mat, and we'll come into reclining bound angle pose. So soles of the feet come together, and your knees will open out to the side. If you have props at home and you'd like to tuck something under the sides of your knees, you can do that. That feels nice to relax into some cushion there or into your blocks. And bring your hands to your lower belly. And notice the bottoms of your feet. They're connected with one another. And for just a moment, press the soles of your feet towards one another and notice where the muscles are engaging in your hips and maybe even in your pelvic floor. Try to find the Mula Bandha here as you're pressing your feet towards one another. Everything else is relaxed in your body, so try not to tense through your shoulders or your neck or your chest muscles, just pushing your feet together. And we'll hold that 3 more breaths. And then relax that tension and let your hips soften. Now with the strength of the muscles of the hips, try to open your knees wider onto the mat. It's like you're pushing your knees and your outer thighs down into the earth. And notice which muscles you're contracting to do that action. Try to connect with your Mula Bandha. At the same time, you're opening your knees wider. Hold that connection, 3 more breaths. And release that, soften your hips, everything relaxed. And then we'll put those 2 actions together. So at the same time, press your feet towards each other, push your knees away out towards the mat, and hold that connection. Lift up the pelvic floor. Imagine you're squeezing your sitting bones together, drawing the right and left sides of your diamond inward, and hold 3 breaths. Keep pushing your knees open. Keep pressing your feet together. Keep drawing up the pelvic floor. 2 more breaths. And then let all of that go. Soften your knees. You can bring your arms to goalpost or out like a T. Let the pelvic floor relax. The inner thighs let go. There's a nice neutral spinal alignment here, a little space underneath your lower back and behind your neck. Now, either remaining as you are for a few more breaths, or if you feel more comfortable, you can let your legs straighten out into our Shavasana position. Arms can still be at goalpost, or you can rest them by your sides, or hands can come back to your belly. Let everything soften in your body. in your mind and in your spirit. This is a nice time as you're in final relaxation to reflect maybe on what you learned today about your body, about the anatomy of your body, the anatomy of the pelvis, the basin, the bowl, the anatomy of the muscles of our pelvic floor, that diamond shape, and how to connect with the pelvic floor in our yoga poses and just in everyday life. Now begin to bring both arms above your head. Take a nice big full body stretch. Let your belly rise up, lengthen. Maybe the chest lifts off the mat. And then as you exhale, press your back down and pull your knees up towards your chest. Hug them in tight. And we'll circle the knees or rock them side to side just to massage that low back. 2 or 3 times and then reverse direction. And then you can either roll to your side or reach your hands behind your legs and roll forward and back until you have enough momentum to rock yourself up to seated, or if you're on your side, just use the strength of your arms to press yourself up. And we'll come into simple cross-leg pose. Just relax your hands to your knees. Notice your pelvis. You might need to rock forward and back a little bit to find that neutral place and press your sitting bones into the earth. Stack your shoulders over your hips, your ears over your shoulders, the nice long spine. And we'll take a breath together, sweep the arms out and up, inhale, lengthen. Press the palms together, the thumbs connect, and the thumbs draw right into the sternum, into our Anjali Mudra. We take this moment to express our gratitude for this opportunity to learn and to practice yoga together as a community, both online and socially distancing here today. It is my honor and my pleasure to teach you this morning. Namaste. Thank you so much for joining me. I will turn our recording off for YouTube, and then if you'd like to turn your cameras on, we'll say hello and let me know how you did with that Mula Bandha.